And we're rowdy already. That's a wonderful thing. This is the Wednesday 12:30 class. We're doing the 1960s. And this is a fabulous class. And today we're doing the iconic Soul Man. I was a little iffy as to how this was going to turn out. I'm still a little iffy on it. So I'm kind of rewriting parts of it. And for those of you that have received my intro and inserts.
Yep.
Here comes Anne. Let's let her in. Um, the the intro, as soon as you hear it, you're going to say, "Oh yeah, I know this." Because if you know Soul Man, Sam and Dave did it one way, and then the Blues Brothers, which is how I learned it, from John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd,
Yep.
they did it exactly the same way. They actually
Oh,
made it a little bit faster. And if
yes.
you guys have never seen the Blues Brothers doing this on Saturday Night Live, go to YouTube and just for the entertainment value of watching them dance. These two guys are crazy wild, and it was no lip syncing. It was all live. The band was live. The band was fabulous. And as a matter of fact, when they did the movie The Blues Brothers, that band was in the movie.
Hmm.
So kind of cool trivia to know. 1967. This was written and composed by Isaac Hayes and David Porter. All right, it was a number two single for Sam and Dave. Now, I didn't listen to Sam and Dave. That was a little bit before my time. Um, the inspiration for this song was actually the civil rights movement, believe it or not.
Hmm.
The civil rights movement of the 1960s. In the aftermath of the 12th Street riot in Detroit, Hayes noticed that black residents had marked their buildings that had not been destroyed during the riots. They were mostly African American owned institutions, and they all had the word, I can't even read my own writing here, soul written on the building. It's kind of
Mhm.
like the Passover. It was kind of like Easter Passover. Don't the angels passed by all the buildings that had the blood of the lamb across the doorposts. Well, in the Detroit riots, if you were an African American and you had soul written on your building, then that told the rioters to leave those buildings alone.
Huh.
Okay, interesting stuff. I did not realize this. All right, so then the reference to Woodstock, which verse is that? Third verse, and I'm
I
not
think
even doing the third verse. But
second.
they talk about Woodstock, and I used to think it was Woodstock, the 1960s big music festival, right? You would think. Nothing to do with that. Does not refer to the music festival, but instead it refers to a segregated rural vocational school in Tennessee.
Huh.
Okay?
Wow.
So it was an all black school in Tennessee, in rural Tennessee. It was awarded the 1968 Grammy for Best Rhythm and Blues Performance. So, yeah, the civil rights movement. Wow, you'd think we would have learned something by now, and it seems like it's going right back to that nonsense. Other covers. Paul Revere and the Raiders did it in 1968. The Blues Brothers in 1978. So, that's my years, and that's when I knew about it. Um, It was also used as the theme for the 1990s sitcom called Soul Man. I didn't realize there was one. The song was performed by Lou Reed and Sam Moore on the soundtrack to the 1986 film Soul Man, okay, which was where the Blues Brothers actually were in
Hmm.
that movie, because they were on a mission from God. People who've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
All right, so I'm rewriting this because, first of all, three verses does make it a little bit long. So we're going to do verse one. So we're going to do the roadmap. So get out your trusty colors. Verse one, the second page, line one, line two, line three, and there in line four, you have a 1, comma 2 ending. Cross out the 2. This is just going to be the first ending. Okay, cross out the 2. Now you've got your dots and a thin line, and you're going to go back and pick up the dots at the beginning for verse 2. Now we're going to do verse 2, all of page 1, line 2, line 3, and where it says third ending, cross out 3 and make it a 2. So it's going to be first ending here, second ending next to it. We're only going to do it twice. So we're not going to play all 3 endings. So at the end of the third line, you might want to make a colorful 2 and then put an arrow down to the third, now second ending. And after you play that measure, you're going to turn the page, go to the next page. You're going to play line 1 and line 2, where you have 2 thin lines. And you are going to write D, S, and fade. All right? And you're going to make those 2 thin lines a color. Now, where's the silly sign? We have to make one, don't we?
I'm sorry, where did you say put DS?
At the end of the third page, page 210, the end of line 2 where you have those 2 thin lines,
Oh, yes, okay.
right there you're going to write DS and fade. So we're going to make our own silly sign. Where are
Okay.
we going to put it? Let's go back to page 209, top line, right before that F chord, right in between the measures. You're going to make your silly sign.
Oh,
I'm a soul man. And you're going to finish playing. You can do the first ending. Then you're going to go back to the silly sign and just repeat that chorus right there.
Dawn,
Yeah.
can you say that again where the silly sign is?
Silly sign is on page 209, the second page,
Uh-huh.
top line,
Okay.
right between the first and second measures, right there before your F chord.
did we put a color on that?
We sure did.
On the shirt,
Use
okay.
that same color on the 2 thin lines on the third page.
Yep, okay, yeah.
Okay. And then you make your silly sign the same color. And then you're just going to repeat and fade. Now, what are we going to do with the last 2 lines on page 3?
Cross them out.
Cross them out and throw them away. That's right. So you're just going to cross
I
them out.
thought so, because when I
We're not
listened
going to
to
use them.
Mhm.
We're going to do a DS and fade. So you can cross those 2 lines out and throw them away. You're not going to use them.
See, Beverly, I said something right.
You guys are so funny. All right, now let's talk a little bit about this sheet here, okay? The sheet where I actually have the intro. Once you hear this intro, it's going to sound like the intro to the song. Both bands that did this that I listened to, the Blues Brothers and Sam and Dave, used this intro. So you'll know what the song is by this intro. All right, now you have insert down here. This is kind of a complicated insert. What was so spectacular about the bands that were playing this song? The horn section. Both those bands, Sam and Dave and the Blues Brothers, had the most fabulous horn sections. So I had to find something that was going to give us some horns. So I'm playing the horn parts, and yeah, that's a little bit complicated. Da 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 da, and you don't have to play it exactly that same way. As a matter of fact, you're going to find out that if you don't drop the last 2 notes, you maybe have to drop those last 2 notes so that you can go back to the upper keyboard and play the melody. And I wrote it here. You guys might want to transfer this phrase to page 209, where the E flat chords are. That's the measure that you might want to put that section right there, where the E flats are.
On say that again.
209, you have 2 measures where you have E flats. Line 2 first
Right.
measure and line 3 second measure. That's where you might want to put those notes there.
Oh,
You
okay.
mean
Right.
third line? You mean the second line, the third line?
Correct. Yep. Or you can do like I did. I just memorized them. And put them in. But I wrote them out for you so that you can write them in if you need them to be written in.
Dawn, is that
Is
where
that
you put,
before the E
where-
flat? Is that
No, it's the
before
measure that includes the E flat. It
Includes
starts
it.
on the
Okay,
E
fine.
flat chord.
Okay,
On the second line.
Second line and the third line. So you're gonna
Okay.
do that twice. Da 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 da.
and that is the horns.
Those are the horns. And
Okay.
you're gonna put those in the bottom keyboard. So your hand is gonna be doing this. It's a lot of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
So Dawn,
Uh-huh.
so on the second line, the first
Mhm.
measure where it says E flat, I'm gonna put in those notes. But
Yep.
what do I do with the two E flat notes that are there? Do I cross
You're
those
gonna
out?
have to play those in the upper keyboard. So that's what I'm
Okay.
saying is you're
Okay.
probably going to have to drop out the last two notes so you
Okay,
can
got
go
it.
back to that upper keyboard and pick up those E flat notes because that's
Okay.
the singer.
Okay,
What's
the
more
last two
important, the
notes,
singer or the horns?
the last two notes we're gonna drop off on the page you gave us
Uh-huh.
are the F and the E flat or the
Mhm.
F and F?
The F and the E flat.
Okay,
Uh-huh. That's your horns is that top line. And then I'm
Okay.
a soul man. Now,
Got
the first and the second endings where you have the B flat and the C chord, that's where this last line goes. And if you wanted to write that in your first ending and your second ending, you can just copy those notes into those two measures. Dump, da, da, dump. Because it's going to sound just like what the record is.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Dump, da, da, dump. Or you can just memorize them too, so it doesn't matter. So you only need, I've got 7 different presets here. You do not need all 7. You can just set up an organ on the top and some horns on the bottom and play the whole thing like that. The only thing you'd actually be missing would be the guitar intro, and you can actually just play that on the horns or on the organ. What if you have a smaller instrument? Because I'm using Motown for a background. What if you don't have Motown? If you don't have Motown, I'll tell you what works perfectly is rock full band. Rock full band. So Hal, Fred, you just go to rock full band and you're going to get that organ on top, and you're going to have a synthesizer on the bottom, but it's perfect for the horns, so you don't have to do anything. Just play the bottom keyboard using the horn parts that are here.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it
And,
sounded really good. And I'm like, wow, how come I didn't keep it this
yeah.
easy for the big organs?
And Dawn,
Yeah.
what is the tempo that we're gonna play at?
Tempo is 118.
Yeah, okay. I was scared that you were gonna tell me it's like 140.
Well, there's a lot of notes. So 118 is going to be going at a good clip. You're
Yeah,
gonna
well-
realize there's a lot of notes. Okay,
Yeah.
so what else would work on here? Motown was the best. 50s swing rock, but I doubled the tempo at 240. It would work in a pinch, but the Motown was actually better. Or just go to the rock full band, which is basic 8-beat, basic rock, or rock 8-beat on the bigger organs. That works. Okay. It's time to play, and hopefully my fingers will feel good enough to play this, because it seems like I mess up a lot on this one.
I thought you were gonna scratch out the last 2 lines.
You did, huh?
He went on and on and on.
Yep. Well, you can play the second page over and over and over again
Yeah.
until you're done, and then just fade it out. All right, so now we're going to do the intro. Okay, so those horns just add all that good stuff to it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, but it's a lot of this.
yeah.
So you just got to get your horns down at the bottom. And I'm using down there a trombone slide NT, a trumpet lead, okay, down on the bottom keyboard, and I'm using brass section. So I'm actually using 3 different brass to combine here. Now, how did I get that? How did I cheated? Because when you're on Motown, you're starting with vintage or normal preset 3, and it gives you a blues organ on top and a blues guitar on the bottom. So that's what I started with to get that blues guitar for the intro. Okay, so that was the guitar I was using. And then I traded those instruments out. I liked preset number 10.
Mhm.
Vintage preset number 10 gave me all the brass instruments that sounded really cool. But now I wanted an organ on top and brass on the bottom. So what I did is I went to normal rhythm preset 10 and I stole all the instruments. That's what I did. I just wrote down what are those instruments from the upper keyboard. So I wrote them down and I wrote down the numbers, and then I took them back to my preset with the blues organ on top and the blues guitar on the bottom, and I just put them in to my red orchestral and solo section. I just took those 3 numbers and plugged them in and sent them all to the lower right. Okay, and so now I have my organ on top, my rock and roll organ, and then my brass that I stole from vintage 10. And why did I have to do it that way? Why couldn't I just save a preset and transport it? Because it was on the upper keyboard and I needed to put those sounds in the lower keyboard. So I just wrote down all the numbers of the sounds and plugged them in. Now I had vintage 10 on the bottom of the keyboard. So that's where I got those cool brass sounds. Yep. I'll betcha, though, I forgot to put down. No, you don't need vintage 10 because you have the numbers. You have all the numbers for. Yep. Yep. So you just follow. And again, what are these presets for? Learning the buttons on your organ, because the more you know where to go on your instrument to find sounds that you like, the more in control you will be when you want to do your own arrangement. Okay, so that's what I did is I found rhythm presets, because you always want to see what do my rhythm presets do first. That's the first place to go. And I liked number 3 and I liked number 10, but you can't go, I'm a soul man, and then go number 10, da 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 da, back to 3, da 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 da, back to 10. No, I had to have them on the same preset, just upper and lower keyboard. So what I did is I just said, okay, what's going to that number vintage 10? What's going there? And I took a look at the sounds and I checked the numbers. Well, how do you check the numbers? Because it doesn't tell you the numbers over here.
Right.
You have to touch where they are and it'll show up in the window and it'll give you the number underneath. And then you write down that number. And so you figure out what are all the instruments that are being used for vintage 10 on the upper keyboard, and then take them and put them all in the lower keyboard for vintage 3. So I took out that blues guitar and put the brass down here. I just used the same numbers. I just plugged them in, sent them all to the lower keyboard. So once you do that, you're going to go, oh, I see what she did. And, it's long enough. You don't need to have the third verse. If you want to play the third verse, go ahead and do that. That's fine. That's fine. You can go 1 and 2 and repeat that first part. I just thought twice was enough.
Mhm. I agree.
The first time I did the verse just on an organ. The second time I did it, I put the horns in the top with the singer. So the organ and the horns were doing the melody, and they also did the bridge part, which is the third page,
Mhm,
top two lines. So I put those horns in that top keyboard.
mhm.
Okay, and how do you know how to do that? Well, you just got to find where they are going to the lower and just send them to the upper,
Mhm.
right? So if you have any questions or problems with that, do not hesitate to go to your favorite store and talk to your favorite PA, or come see me and I'll be really happy to walk you through it. Okay, questions?
Dawn,
Yeah.
when you put a sound to the upper, that you're pointing over there,
Hmm.
and it was on the lower, do you have to turn the lower off?
Depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. That's actually the very first question I was expecting. If you've got two sounds in and I'm not talking inspires, rialtos. You guys, you just send them to wherever you need to send them to. Okay? And you're fine. It's these A organs, the Sterling, the Imperial, the Liberty, those organs, the Prestiges, you have two reds and only your commands for both of them. So if I want both those sounds to go to the lower right, you cannot have upper on at all. If I want them both to go to upper on, I hit upper on and turn my lower right off so both those sounds go upper.
Right.
If I have both commands on, upper on and lower right on, now I'm splitting the difference. One sound goes up and one sound goes down. Always the solid light goes to the upper keyboard and the blinky light goes down. Now I can't remember what I did. I may not have sent them all up. Oh, I just sent one of them up. So if you're just sending one of them up, you can just hit upper on. So I left the trombone down here and sent the brass to the upper keyboard.
Thank you.
It can be kind of confusing, but again, the more you do it, the easier it is. Or just go to a marquee or a grand marquee and it's easier. Seriously, because there they put every sound in its own separate box with
Yeah,
its
that's right.
own separate set of commands. So when I tell you send it to upper on, you just push upper on and it goes there. Easy. Easy. Yep. It's the ones where you have reds and blues and two and flashy and blinky, and that's when it gets a little bit dicey. All right. Are there any changes in chords?
You're gonna show us where the presets go.
Yes, I am. Yes. There's no changes in chords at all. But let's
Good.
go over where
Okay.
these presets actually go. A1 lower is for your intro.
Oh,
A1 lower is just for your intro.
Yep.
All right. At the end of your intro, you're going to kick into A2 lower. And then the minute you start playing the verses, it's A2 upper.
Okay, I don't
A
understand.
minute.
Okay, all right, let's go back and play them then. All right, so A1 lower is your intro. It's this extra sheet.
Yeah,
Okay, and you're going to play. Right here, where you play
Oh.
that F is where you go to A2 and you stay on the lower.
I see it there.
Because the bass player comes in. Now you're going to go to A2. You're already on A2.
mhm.
So now you're just going to go to the upper keyboard when you start the verse. Okay.
Yep, I didn't see that on the.
A2 upper.
A2 upper is where you start the verses in your book.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
A2 upper. All right. Let's go to the second page. Middle of the first measure. A3 and A5. A3 and A5. By the way, you also want to put octave, 8VA.
Are they both upper keyboard?
No, yes, yes and no, because you're going to play. And then you go to the lower keyboard for your insert. And then back up here. I'm a soul man. And
So
then
that's
there you just
A3
do a
on
fill
the,
in. Just do a
A3 on the insert.
Uh-huh. And then you go back to the upper keyboard. I'm a soul man. And the insert's the lower keyboard. I'm a soul man. And you're on the octave 8 VA on that whole page until you get to the end of the first ending where you've got what I. That triplet, that goes back to loco A4. So right before you get to that triplet, you're going to put A4.
Okay.
Got what I got. And that's loco. You're going to go back to, and that's A4 upper.
Okay.
A5 goes, when you get over to here, A5 goes back up the octave.
Where?
And then your insert goes to the lower.
That's A5.
Mm-hmm. And A5 and A3, if you notice, are exactly the same preset.
Yep.
Exactly the same preset. And A7 is exactly the same preset, correct. All right, so now when you get to the second ending, which says third ending, but we're going to make it the second ending, before you get to the word well, you're going to put A6 U upper. And that's going to go back to loco. So that you're going to play that down here. So that you play your bridge on the third page in the loco position. I want to be your only boyfriend, so don't you be having other boyfriends.
Don,
Yeah.
on the second page, you wanted the A4 upper, and then we do that on,
Upper octave, octave 8 VA.
yep, AVA.
Uh-huh.
Wait.
And A5, same thing. A5 is also upper, and it's octave 8 VA.
A4 is ATA?
Nope, when you get to A4, it goes back to loco, and you go
That's what I
back to the
thought.
verse.
Right.
Huh? A3 and A5 are upper and octave 8 VA. A4 at the bottom of the page, before you go back to do the second verse, is loco,
Right, you
still-
said that, right.
but it is upper.
Those notes that we're putting in both those endings, are they lower or upper?
Those are the lower keyboard,
Okay,
because you want the horns to play them. Now, what happens if you goof and play them in the upper keyboard?
doesn't make any difference.
Nothing.
Where
Because
does
sometimes it's
A7
hard to
go?
remember which hand is going where.
Dawn, would you explain where the insert goes again?
Yes.
I got confused.
Yes, your insert, which is that one measure where the E,
Okay.
it's
No, I know
basically
that.
just
Okay.
the
right,
one
I got
measure
that.
with the E flat,
The B flat, right.
the E flat,
Oh, wait.
okay? It's that one measure where you have a half rest and a quarter rest, and then you have those 2/8 notes that you got to get your hand back to that upper keyboard. So where that half rest and quarter rest are in line 2, and then again in line 3 where the E flat chord is, you're going to just write those notes in or just
Okay,
memorize them.
Okay, well, what about the other line for the lower keyboard? It
The
says,
lower, the other line for the B flat and the C, that goes in your first ending where the half rest and the quarter rest are, and the second ending where the half rest and the quarter rest are. So you can write those notes in your first ending and your second ending.
Dawn,
And they're lower.
And then if you want, you can do a fill in and just add an extra measure until you go back or before you go to the bridge. You don't have to go straight to the bridge. You can take a whole extra measure and do a fill in or whatever you want.
Dawn, I have a question on the second line. I
Mm-hmm.
have on the second line, the horns, which
Yes.
is, you wanted us to play that
Yep.
before E flat,
On the E flat chord, correct.
right? But my A3 and A5 go on the top line.
Correct.
Okay.
But your horns are the same preset, just lower keyboard.
Okay,
So
okay,
your horns, when you get to the horns, it's just going to be an L. You're on the
Okay.
same preset. It's just if you put horns, that's always going to be L
oh, all right,
on those two. I'll play it again and it'll make sense.
okay.
You
Okay,
think?
now let's go to the third page. You're going to play that. That's A6 upper, and you've got the horns in that upper keyboard again. And be my only boyfriend. I want to be your only boyfriend. Now, that next measure where you have the half rest and the quarter rest,
Yeah,
before you get to your pickup notes, you want to go to A7 upper, and then it's octave 8 VA again. And you're going back to the silly sign, and it's the same preset as A3 and A5. You're just cutting and pasting.
okay.
So every time you play that chorus, it's the same set of sounds.
John, where did you put A6 again?
A6 is on the bottom of page 2, right before you get to the word well.
Got it, got it. I put it in. Okay,
And it's loco, and it's the upper keyboard.
okay, I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
What happens if you want to play it more than once? You want to go back to this one and you forget to go back to the silly sign and you go back to the beginning. What happens?
Keep playing.
You just play. That's right. Don't worry too much about messing up. This is rock and roll. This is actually soul. This is funky soul. Yeah. This is funky stuff. So, don't worry too much. If you make a mistake, so what? But really, the horns are what make this.
Dawn, one more question.
Hmm?
Last page, the first line, after the A flat, I put A7 upper. Yes or no?
Not on the first line, at the end of the second line.
The end of the, okay, I'm glad I asked.
End of the second line, yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna play, that's the little bridge part. Well, grab your rope and I pull you in. Give you hope and be your only boyfriend. That's the bridge, and then it goes back to the chorus, I'm a soul man.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
You got it. You got it. Yes. And don't worry about playing it exactly the way it's written. Play it the way you hear it. Play it the way your fingers feel like playing it. Doesn't matter. You're playing some horns. You're having a good time. All right, I'm going to play the whole thing one more time. I do have fingering for you as well. So let's go back to intro. Oop, I need to get my intro up here. I don't have the intro memorized. Octave. Whoop, you went too far. No, that's fine. Octave. played it out.
Mhm.
That's cool, Don.
Okay, so did you follow?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's a lot of upper octave, lower octave, back to the loco, and upper keyboard, lower keyboard. On the smaller instruments, just play the your rock full band, upper, lower. Just go back and forth between the upper and the lower. If you don't feel like doing that, don't worry about it. If you just want to play what's here and do a lot of fill-ins, that's fine too. No worries. Remember, everything that I put in for you is optional. It's optional. All right, I do have fingering for you as well. Now, let's see. Oh, Spanish flea. Ah, okay. That'll be next week's.
It's Don.
Yeah.
I sent you a text on the chat.
Oh,
You were talking about
okay.
different places to go ahead and put stuff. Do you have a list of where you can put stuff? Like custom buttons? Not your custom buttons, you see.
The custom
I got
buttons
no
here,
orc one or
or what? Do I
no,
have a
like the
list
custom,
of
like different places and tabs and stuff.
all your geniuses?
Okay,
All, well, and yours, you don't have geniuses. You have sounds.
okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so anytime that you have a sound,
Mm-hmm.
those can be changed. You have sounds in your
Yeah, like I know our orc one and orc
your
two.
orc 1, orc
And
2,
solo one
solo
and
1,
solo
solo 2, your upper tab, your lower tabs,
Probably the
basically
bass tab, I
everywhere.
think is-
Your golden harp, your virtuoso, that can all be changed. Your pedals can all be changed. So, any place that you have a sound or a genius button or tab can be changed. Now, that being said, you can also change what's going on in your background by going to Edit Style.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
And when you go to Edit Style, you touch the top of your screen and it tells you what's in the Genie or Basic and Orc Plus. And it just takes those two things apart and gives you all the instruments that are being played that are not your bass or your drums or your lower chord. Bass, drums, and lower chord, and then everything else is in your Genie Basic and Orchestra Plus. If you
Okay, thank you.
change the sounds, you cannot change the pattern of the sound. So if, for example, if you go to something and it says brass and it's only doing a blat, blat, if that's all it's doing, and you put a new sound in there, guess what it's going to do? The same thing. It's just going to have a different sound. So you cannot change the pattern of what they're actually playing. If you've got a guitar that's strumming and you change it to a piano, it's going to basically sound with that same rhythm that that guitar was doing. So editing your style, you can change sounds, you cannot change patterns.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
That's actually
Yep.
a good question. Yeah. Yeah, you can change a lot of stuff here. You really can. But that's why we also have presets. And I like to start with presets because what's there is usually so good that sometimes you just have to rearrange it. I want to take this sound from over here and this sound from over here, and then you're putting together your own arrangement of your sounds. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, I have fingering for those of you who want it. Thank you so much for coming. I love this class. You guys are awesome, awesome, awesome. Have a fabulous couple of days, weekend, till I see you again. Some of you I'll see you on Friday. Some of you I'll see you next Wednesday. Get out your pencils and let's do some fingering.
Thank you, Dawn.
You are so welcome. You're welcome, welcome. F3, E flat 2, F3, F3. This is basically easy stuff. F3, E flat 2, F3, 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 A flat 4, G3, A flat 4, E flat 2, E flat 2, E flat 2. Next line, F3, F3, E flat 2, F3. Imagine that. E flat 2, F3, F3. C1. Next line, F3, E flat 2, F3. Check mark. F2, A flat 4, G3, A flat 4. Low C1. Top of the next page. F3, E flat 2, F3. E flat 2, E flat 2, F3, F3. Real tough stuff here, I'm telling you. That's why I had to put those horns in to make it a little tougher for you. E flat 2, E flat 2, F3, F3. E flat 2, E flat 2, F3, F3. E flat 2, E flat 2, F3, F3. The first ending, your pickup notes are E3, E flat 2, and F3. And then at the end of the second ending, end of the page, E flat 2. Let's go to the next page. Guess what all those Fs are going to be?
Oh.
Threes.
Wow.
F3, 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 E flat 2. F3, 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 D1. Yeah, the fingering is the easiest part of this whole song. F3, D1, F3, G4, A5, G4. And your pickup notes C1, D2. Be Your Only Boyfriend is the only thing that even goes up to a different note, pretty much.
Okay.
The notes that we wrote in ending 1 or 2, I don't have fingering for because you're just going to play them with
Right. Oops.
pretty easy. Yeah.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome. You are
Thank
welcome.
you,
welcome.
John.
Thanks, Dawn.
You guys are the best.
Good job. Thank you.